Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Here's some really bad news. Israel could soon be facing a major new threat from another country, this time Jordan. The Muslim Brotherhood is gaining power there, and people in the streets are chanting death to Israel.
Meanwhile, Israel is defeating Hamas in Gaza and planning possible military action against Hezbollah in the north. Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
The Israel Defense Forces say they have dismantled Hamas's Rafah brigade, eliminating more than 2,200 terrorists and destroying 8 miles of terror tunnels. Some 80% of the underground tunnel network beneath the strategic area known as the Philadelphia Corridor. This allows the IDF easier access to destroy the many tunnels around Rafah that link Gaza and Egypt. Hamas used those tunnels to smuggle huge amounts of weapons into Gaza. With Israel increasingly gaining the upper hand over Hamas in the south, the IDF is looking north to potentially launch a major ground operation against Hezbollah.
The center of gravity is moving to the north. We are nearing the completion of our tasks in the south.
Hezbollah showed that it's still a threat this week, hitting Israel with 100 rockets Wednesday and 60 more Thursday. Striking back, Israel is already targeting areas in Lebanon and Syria to weaken the terrorist group before possibly launching an all-out war to stop Hezbollah's daily attacks and let some 60,000 Israelis return home. Israel's defense chief this week visited the troops who would likely take part in a ground invasion.
And this thing is a ready arrow, ready for action. We will know when to activate it.
And Israel apparently scored a victory against Hezbollah and Iran earlier this week when it reportedly took out an underground Iranian missile factory in Syria. Trouble could also be brewing on another border as Islamists just scored big wins in Jordan's latest elections. Palestinians make up at least half of the population in that country, where the political arm of the Muslim Brotherhood won 32 of 138 seats in Jordan's House of Representatives, garnering 500,000 votes. Observers warn it's a victory for the Brotherhood, the radical Islamic group that gave birth to Hamas. Many Jordanians have already been radicalized, chanting in the streets, "All Jordanians belong to Hamas," and "Death to Israel." This Islamist praised his son for murdering 3 Israelis at the Allenby Bridge crossing between Jordan and Israel on Sunday.
I'm honored and proud that I've raised a hero who carried out a martyrdom operation in defense of Islam and Arabism.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this week visited the long border his nation shares with Jordan, making certain his forces are ready to handle any threats there.
It is important for us to ensure that this border remains a border of peace and security.
Some experts say Iran is pushing for the overthrow of the King of Jordan. If radical Islamists ever gain control of that country, it could pose one of the biggest and nearest dangers to Israel. Netanyahu warned the challenges along the border have already been growing.
There is an attempt to smuggle both terrorists and weapons across from Jordan into Judea and Samaria and into the cities of Israel.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
This is a very concerning development for me because I know the history here. You go all the way back to 1948. The King of Jordan was assassinated on the Temple Mount at the Al-Aqsa Mosque by radical Muslims who said, you've lost your life because you have made peace with Israel. You move forward to 1972, the PLO is taking refuge in Jordan, and they try to overthrow the King of Jordan and create an Islamic State. And they get assistance from Syria. That was thwarted primarily because the U.S. intervened and F-15s flew over the Syrian tanks as they were nearing the Jordanian border. That was stopped, and then those same radicals were expelled from Jordan. And where did they go? They went to southern Lebanon and turned into Hezbollah. So here we are with the Muslim Brotherhood, the very people who assassinated Anwar Sadat after he came to peace with Israel and signed a peace agreement between Egypt and Israel, called the Camp David Accords. So you look at the roots of this group, and we have to pray. This is absolutely concerning, unbelievably concerning news, that if Jordan becomes a radical state, that is dangerous for the entire region, not just Israel, but the entire region. If the Muslim Brotherhood takes control, it's bad news for everyone, and whether it's Syria or Egypt, all the surrounding nations. Keep in mind, Egypt has declared the Muslim Brotherhood to be illegal, and they put their leadership into jail. So if fellow Muslims say, you're too radical for us, just imagine if they gain power in Jordan. In another news, there's growing danger of yet another war. And if you don't think we're living in the end times, keep in mind the words of the Bible. There'll be wars and rumors of wars, and here's another rumor of war, this time between Russia and NATO. Gary Lane has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Gary?
Gordon, Putin's threat came ahead of a meeting between British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Biden at the White House today. They're discussing the possibility of an agreement to let Ukraine use long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Those British and French missiles could include U.S. technology. That led Putin to say, quote, "This will mean that NATO countries, the United States, European countries are fighting with Russia." In response, the British Prime Minister said Russia started the conflict and can end it themselves. Some in the U.S. have been concerned that if Western missiles are used inside Russia, Moscow might strike back against a NATO target, escalating the war. Well, China has ended its international adoption program, stopping all pending cases at any stage and leaving many families in limbo. Over the last 3 decades, more than 160,000 Chinese children have been adopted abroad, many by Americans. Charlene Aaron takes a closer look at what's driving this decision and its overall impact.
This is a tragic turn of events.
Jed Medifind, president of the Christian Alliance for Orphans, tells CBN News China's move puts hundreds of American families in limbo, leaving them heartbroken.
There are many folks out there, including some dear friends of our families, who have walked that road for many years. They have actually been matched with a precious child and have been anticipating traveling to bring her home. And at this point, it looks like that will never happen.
China's foreign ministry spokesperson saying, "We are grateful for the desire and love of the governments and adoptive families of relevant countries to adopt Chinese children," adding the only exception will be for families who are adopting the children or stepchildren of blood relatives in China. The U.S. State Department is still seeking clarity on how this change will impact those families already in the adoption process. China's government began allowing international adoptions in 1992 out of concerns of overpopulation. Its one-child policy often forced families to abandon children, especially baby girls and those born with disabilities. Now faced with one of the world's lowest birth rates, China is reversing course, joining a global trend including countries such as Denmark, Russia, and Norway. Medifind still worries about the children affected by the decision.
Even though they've closed the door to inter-country adoption, these children aren't being welcomed into families. They're growing up in institutions, they're growing up on the streets. And so that is really the profound challenge.
Some taking to social media to express disapproval of the news. As a person who was adopted from China by an American family, this is truly heartbreaking. I cannot imagine a life without my loving family, Jackson Arcuri commented on Instagram. It is a gap Medifind hopes the church in China will be able to fill.
My earnest prayer is that the church in China, which is substantive and continues to grow, will really step up for these children in China, that they will be willing to consider the very countercultural choice to welcome a child that has special needs, that is an older orphan, that may come from a sibling group.
A prayer many believers hope to see answered for so many children in need. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Natural disasters are striking across the United States with the raging wildfires and an earthquake on the West Coast. while parts of the southeast and Midwest are dealing with the aftermath of Tropical Storm Francine. Dale Hurd has that story.
Firefighters are finally getting some help from the weather in the form of cooler temperatures as they battle 3 major wildfires in Southern California. The fires have burned 100,000 acres and destroyed dozens of homes. This is all that's left of the home Joe Caruso's father built back in the 1980s.
I was hoping my kids would get to kind of grow up in the same house I did, but life happens.
Officials say at least one of these fires was deliberately set and have charged Justin Halstenberg with arson for sparking the line fire, which has burned over 37,000 acres. With wildfires raging in the mountains, Southern California residents were jolted awake Thursday when a 4.7 magnitude earthquake rattled the Los Angeles area.
It felt like it was the big one for a moment.
It felt like God was holding our house and shaking it and saying, get out.
The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake was centered 4 miles north of Malibu and that there was no major damage. In the southeast, Francine continued to weaken after first coming ashore in Louisiana Wednesday evening as a Category 2 hurricane. At the storm's peak, 450,000 people were without power as a storm surge flooded hundreds of structures in coastal communities.
I lost the roof on the shop. They had a lot of strong winds, a lot of water, as you can see.
Fortunately, there were no reports of deaths or injuries. CBN's Operation Blessing is already on the ground in Louisiana, working with church partners as recovery efforts begin.
It seems like the greatest need we're seeing right now as a result of significant power outages with localized flooding is that they may need some hot meals. And so we're considering bringing in a mobile kitchen. We've also got the ability to send relief loads of food, water, and ice if necessary.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Gordon, it's always comforting and encouraging to see Operation Blessing on the ground helping people in need in crisis.
And if you want to be a part of that aid, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call us. 1-800-700-7000. Say, I want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. Our motto is, when disasters strike, we want to strike back with love and compassion and very tangible aid in their time of need. If you want to be a part of it, you can write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line of a check. You can go to cbn.com. There'll be a place on the giving page where you can designate your gift. You can also text OBDR to 71777. Do it now. Let's tell people how much we love them, how much we care. And there's no better way when you don't have a roof on your home, when you don't have the ability just even to feed yourself, for people to come with fresh water, with food, with clearing of your lot. All of these things are made possible because you care enough to give. So be a part of it. 1-800-700-7000.